Part 45. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 441. It must be said that Xianxia made the most reasonable response in such a critical situation. Zuyun's chaos sword was covered with lightning, and each lightning spirit carried a terrifying aura of destruction. Xianxia knew that he could dodge the chaos sword. But he couldn't be sure whether Zuyun could let the lightning spirit leave the sword and attack him from behind. So, he could only fight this time and fight for his life. Under different realms, it must be that the cultivators of higher realms have a greater chance of survival and suffer less injuries. The sudden appearance of the sky thunder just now made Xianxia subconsciously think that Zuyun was a cultivator with thunder spirit roots. However, he never thought that the sky thunder was caused by Zuyun's thunder talisman. And Zuyun, who has experienced hundreds of battles. Earth wall. He held the sword in his right hand, but in fact, he had already prepared the earth wall talisman in his left hand. Fighting for life with cultivators stronger than himself, Zuyun never dared to let down his guard. Even he had so many back UPS, not to mention Xianxia, who was at the peak of the late Jindan stage that he had never seen before. Without a trump card, how could he become the acting leader of a large sect? As the talisman was crushed, a wall of earth suddenly jumped out of the ground. Not only did Zuyun's chaos sword pierce the earth wall, but even the black shadow thrown by Xianxia was immediately blocked, but he found an extremely sharp cry. Is it a monster? Zuyun's heart sank. He thought that Xianxia was using a magic weapon. But he didn't expect that there was a monster hidden in his sleeves. He frowned slightly and had a countermeasure. When he took back the chaos sword, the earth wall also shattered. The yellow dust in the sky instantly turned into a little spiritual power and dissipated between heaven and earth. Quick, kill him. Xianxia roared in a low voice and gave his monster an order. However, a look of confusion flashed in the eyes of the monster. At this moment, countless lightnings came from behind them. It was overwhelming, like a thunderbolt from the sky. It was Zuyun. When the earth wall was broken, Zuyun used the thunder escape technique, and after escaping 200 steps away, he immediately used the Wuji sword technique. Good boy. Xianxia was least afraid of getting close, and his body swayed continuously. When he immersed himself in the darkness, another monster appeared out of thin air. This monster looked like a horse. However, there was a sharp horn on the horse's face. The thunder snake was coming, and the unicorn beast stood up and neighed. The boundless thunder snakes actually gathered together and formed an extremely thick thunder column, rushing into the unicorn. And this monster was unscathed. Zuyun was shocked. His chaos sword, supplemented by the thunder spirit power, had never met an opponent. Even when fighting against the two great demon kings, Xianxia and Lao Ma, he could make them retreat and never dare to face them head-on. What is the origin of this demon beast? Ha ha ha, boy, so what if you have a thunder spirit root? My one-horned thunder horse grew up by the thunder pool, and thunder spirit power is the best tonic for him. Xianxia's voice rang out again from all directions. Suddenly, Zuyun also laughed. Do you think I only have thunder spirit power? Thank you for your reminder. Zuyun shook the chaos sword, and the thunder spirit power on it suddenly dissipated. Then, with the sword body as the center, the surroundings quickly lit up. The thunder sword turned into a fire sword. Dual thunder and fire spirit roots. Xianxia, who was in the dark, couldn't help but exclaimed at this boundless fire power. Dual spirit roots are very common, and there are also many mutated spirit roots. But generally speaking, mutated spirit roots are single spirit roots. Even if they have dual spiritual roots, it is impossible to cultivate both attributes to such purity. Zuyun's fire spiritual power is also transformed from the chaos power. How can it be more than pure? And Xianxia was also panicked. This time he spoke, not only forgot to conceal his position, but also exposed his whereabouts. It also delayed this breath of time, allowing Zuyun to rush to the front. The fire sword in his hand had already slashed at the unicorn thunder horse. Not good. Yu's Haibai suddenly came back to his senses and immediately wanted to take the unicorn thunder horse back, but he didn't expect that Zuyun was waiting for this moment. When he was far away before, he could only roughly determine Yu's Haibai's position. Now that he escaped in front of him, Yu's Haibai spoke in panic, allowing Zuyun to accurately locate him. He saw that the tip of his sword turned, and the fire on the chaos sword suddenly broke away from the sword body, turning into a fire dragon and rushing towards Yu's Haibai. The fire dragon split into 5, directly trapping Yu's Haibai. This is the fire spell. Yu's Haibai no longer had time to be surprised. He was afraid of getting close to him, and now he was surrounded by 5 fire dragons. He could only use all his strength to escape from here. But when Zuyun fought with others, he always wanted to beat the drowning dog. Take advantage of his weakness to kill him. He raised his left hand, and the fan suddenly appeared in his hand. Increase it. The roar tore through the night, and the 5 fire dragons, fueled by the fan, suddenly increased their flames and directly engulfed Yu's Haibai. Boy, I want you to die. The fire dragons entangled into a ball and turned into a sea of fire. But Zuyun did not dare to relax. He was just caught off guard. Who knows if Yu's Haibai has other means? For example, the small monster hidden in his sleeve. Not far behind him, the sound of killing monsters kept coming, accompanied by Yan Laoxi's yelling and Zhao Kamang's beastly roar. Zuyun didn't look back at all. These monsters haven't dispersed, which means Yu's Haibai is not dead. And the person who started everything is Yu's Haibai. The only way to get Yan Laoxi out of trouble is to deal with Yu's Haibai. However, the sea of fire subsided, but there was no one in front of me. Zuyun's pupils shrank suddenly, secretly thinking it was not good. He was watching so closely, but he still let Yu's Haibai escape. At this moment, Elder Yan suddenly screamed. Not good. Zuyun responded suddenly, but saw Yan Laoxi flying backwards with flames all over his body. In front of him, there was a figure. Yu's Haibai. Zuyun couldn't figure out the reason at all, or in other words, he had no time to think about what means Yu's Haibai used to escape there. His body flashed one after another, and he reached the place where Yan Laoxi landed, just in front of him. Cough cough cough. Yu's Haibai's face was extremely gloomy, he coughed twice violently, and said with murderous intent, Boy, you are fine. You made a miscalculation today, but don't think about it easy. As he spoke, Yu's Haibai's figure disappeared instantly. At the same time, a group of monsters also disappeared out of thin air, apparently being taken away by Yu's Haibai. Here, only the monsters summoned by Zuyun and Zhao Kamang are left. But more than half of these monsters were lost. Zuyun was not sure whether Yu's Haibai was lying to him, so he pondered for a moment, took out a handful of spirit stones, and quickly deployed the 9 turns and 9 suns formation to protect the 2 of them. Then, he collected all the monsters. Chen, Xiao Chen, you, have hidden a lot from, Yan. Yan Laoxi spoke intermittently. Obviously, he was knocked away just now because of a powerful blow from Yu's Haibai. Elder Yan. Zuyun couldn't help but screamed when he saw that every time Yan Laoxi said a word, his vitality would quickly disappear. It can't be done, it can't be done, Yu's Haibai, I don't know what method he used, my golden elixir, has been shattered, there is no way, I can save it. As Yan Laoxi spoke, he took out a pill from the ring and swallowed it with trembling hands. In an instant, a flash of red light appeared on his face, and he looked much better. Elder Yan. Zuyun was delighted, what kind of elixir was this that was so mysterious? In his desperation, he couldn't tell at all that this was actually just trying to force Yan Laoxi to have a little more life. Little friend Chen, let's make a long story short. Yan Laoxi said directly, this is the return of light pill. Once the effect of the medicine wears off, Yan will definitely die. Just listen carefully. Zuyun was shocked again and wanted to comfort Yan Laoxi, but he didn't know where to start. Moreover, facing Yan Laoxi's determined gaze, he was unable to speak at all. Little friend Chen, let me talk to you first. The reason why Yan wants to take you into the Fire Dragon sect is actually because Yan doesn't want a monk with good intentions like you to be assimilated into the Peepa realm. Cultivation as an immortal is not easy, and the higher the realm, the harder it is. Secondly, don't go to the Fire Dragon sect anymore. Firstly, Yu's Haibai is narrow-minded and will definitely go to the Yanlong sect to look for you. Secondly, in the Fire Dragon sect, without Yan's care, I'm afraid you will, it's hard to move forward. Fire Dragon sect is not a good place either. Finally, Yan has devoted his whole life to refining elixirs and making tools. If his experience over the years were lost, Yan would not be willing to die. Now Yan's property is all given to you. I only ask that you find a destined person in the future to give Yan the proceeds will be passed on. After saying that, Yan Laoxi took off the finger from his thumb and patted it in Zuyun's hand. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 442. They met not long ago, but Yan Laoxi died in the mountain because he took a picture of Qiuqi. Zuyun felt very uncomfortable. He was on guard against Yan Laoxi, but Yan Laoxi treated him kindly. In my heart, I felt a little guilty. Zuyun is not a heartless person. If someone cares about him, Zuyun will naturally not let him down. Just like Yan Laoxi at this time. As Yan Laoxi took off his ring finger, his vitality had also disappeared. But I never expected that Yan Laoxi closed his eyes, his face extremely peaceful. Elder Yan, since you trust me so much, I, Zuyun, have nothing to say. Refining elixirs and making weapons. Then I, Zuyun, will pass on your mantle. After saying that, Zuyun put the ring on his thumb, and then with a thought, Fen Tianyang quickly jumped out of his heart and rushed towards Yan Laoxi's body. The fire flickered, illuminating Zuyun's heavy face. We treat each other as equals, but we get the inheritance. It should be treated as a teacher. However, even if Zuyun called master, Yan Laoxi couldn't hear him. But Zuyun still knelt down in front of the fire and kowtowed 3 times. When he got up, Yan Laoxi had turned into a pile of ashes. Zuyun raised his hand, and all the ashes flew up, falling into a ball in his hand. He carefully took out a wooden box from his ring and placed the ashes in it. Old Yan, death is like a lamp extinguished, but fallen leaves must return to their roots. Zuyun doesn't know your life experience, so he can only go against your wishes and go to the Fire Dragon sect. Only by burying you properly can I have a clear conscience. Putting away the urn, Zuyun pointed the wrench at the owner. This imprint will disappear when Yan Laoxi dies, and Zuyun only needs to drop some blood essence to make it his own. He remembered that Yan Laoxi would not let him go to the Fire Dragon sect, and he was a little defensive. By being in the Great Formation, he entered the Immortal Mansion in a flash. Afterwards, Yan Laoxi threw all of Yan Laoxi's relics on the stone bed, took out some important items from his ring, and then left the Immortal Mansion again. There is no safer place than in the Immortal Mansion. Since you are going to the Fire Dragon sect, you must be fully prepared. After doing all this, Zuyun withdrew the formation. A group of monsters surrounded the carriage on guard, while Zhao Kamang rushed forward, lowered his head and roared at Zuyun. Zuyun patted his head gently, and suddenly remembered a good transformation pill he had seen earlier. That was what I got when I took the photo of Qiuqi. He quickly took it out, handed it to Zhao Kamang, and said, "You can bring it to Sangu later. I'll take you back now." Zhao Kamang did not recognize the elixir, but he did not dare to neglect Zhu Yun's instructions. Nodding, he and the remaining monsters were all sent into the pasture. Zhu Yun sighed, approached the carriage, and gently knocked on the shaft 3 times. Hearing this secret signal, the young monk cautiously stuck his head out. "Senior, senior." The surroundings had quieted down, and Xiao Xiu knew that the fight was over. But he didn't see Yan Laoxi, so he couldn't help but look around. "Stop looking, go back to Fangxi." The spirit horse was not dead, and it was returning the same way, so Yu's Haibai would not be able to do anything to him. No need. As long as Yu's Haibai still has some energy left, he will never leave just like that. Therefore, Zhu Yun does not need to worry about the life and death of this young monk. "Senior, senior, I don't dare to walk at night, I beg senior." Hearing these solemn words, Zhu Yun suddenly realized and said, "Okay, then you can hide in the carriage for the night, and I will leave first." Zhu Yun didn't wait for Xiao Xiu's response before he stood up and flew towards the northwest. He had already planned to find as many Fire Dragon sect disciples as possible to help him. If we wait until dawn before leaving, some situations will inevitably arise. If you set off earlier, you can get to the Fire Dragon sect earlier. There are only more than 150 miles left of the 300 miles, which is not too far for Zhu Yun. At this time, Yu's Haibai did not stay as Zhu Yun had guessed. Zhu Yun's successive moves caused him to suffer a lot. If he didn't have a life-saving trump card, the 5 Luo True Dragons alone would most likely burn him to death. But even if he survived, Yu's Haibai paid a heavy price. Not only was he seriously injured, but the monster in his sleeve also died for him. At that time, in the Sea of Fire, Yu's Haibai used Suankai's method and used the monster beast as a substitute for death. He escaped into the group of monster beasts and unexpectedly injured Yan Laoxi. And his injury was actually due to Yan Laoxi's counterattack. But because of this, Yan Laoxi's Danshan was directly blasted to pieces. However, Yu's Haibai was also traumatized by the force of the counterattack. Even in his prime, he could not fight Zhu Yun safely, let alone be seriously injured. Therefore, he took the opportunity to escape. "Boy, you made me lose this demon spirit rat, if I don't take revenge, I will give up and let it go." In a small and hidden cave, Yu's Haibai roared silently, then closed his eyes and began to use his spiritual power to heal his wounds. He had no idea that he had almost taken advantage of Mr. Wu from the pet pavilion by rushing all the way. As Zhu Yun flew all the way to the northwest, he was quickly discovered by Zhen Wengziu. "This figure looks very familiar. Who is it?" In a hidden place in the mountains, Zhen Wengziu led a group of dead soldiers with piercing eyes, as if they were about to pierce the night. After Yan Laoxi left with Zhu Yun, Mr. Wu asked him to lead people to intercept him. In fact, he had long been uneasy and kind-hearted. Not only did he want to take back Xiu Qi who was shot away by Zhu Yun, but he also wanted to snatch the sword. But Zhen Wengziu didn't want to rush forward at night, so he stayed here. But as Zhu Yun faded away, he felt more and more something was wrong. This mountain does not travel at night, as most monks know. Unless there is an emergency. Moreover, there were half a dozen sounds coming from behind, and fire kept coming out. Zhen Wengziu pondered for a moment, counted the time again, and was suddenly shocked. Yan Laoxi is good at using fire, and there are constant roars of beasts just now. It is most likely Yu's Haibai. So, it was Yan Laoxi who just ran away. Zhen Wengziu thought for a moment, then took out the jade talisman. After pouring spiritual power into it, he whispered, "Mr. Wu, something has changed here. It should be that Yu's Haibai and Yan Laoxi fought." "Oh." In the market, Mr. Wu's eyes suddenly shone with light, and then he said, "How is the battle going?" "I don't know, but I only saw one of them running to the northwest, but it was too dark to see clearly. Humph, it must be Yan Laoxi. Use Haibai is really capable and can find Yan Laoxi. Since there is only one person left, hurry up and chase after him. Both of them are at the peak of the late stage of Dan formation. Yan Laoxi, even if he wins, he must still be injured. Yes, Mr. Wu. Zhen Wengzhou put away the sound transmission jade talisman and took out another black magic weapon. After infusing spiritual power, 300 black shadows stood up in the darkness at the same time. 300 puppets are enough to deal with you, Yan Laoxi, right? Zhen Wengzhou showed a sneer and stood up. However, in order not to be discovered, he flew under the tree canopy. And the 300 puppets in his mouth flew close to the ground without making a sound at all. At this time, Zuyun calculated the distance and stopped at 300 miles. In order to prevent accidents, he set up the 9 turns and 9 yang formation. After thinking for a moment, he set up many self-destruction formations outside the formation. The self-destruction array was still connected by the spirit guiding array, but in order to prevent accidental injuries, he slightly modified the spirit guiding array so that it would not be accidentally touched. After doing all this, Zuyun flashed and entered the immortal mansion. Looking at the scattered items on the stone table, he began to count and classify them. There were not many spiritual stones, so Yan Laoxi paid for them all out of his own pocket and traded millions of spiritual stones to Mr. Wu. All that's left are some porcelain bottles and jade boxes. The porcelain bottle contains the elixir, and the jade box is naturally the elixir. In addition, there are some metal materials. Yan Laoxi also has a weapon refiner, so it is not surprising to have some materials with him. However, the quality of these materials is quite good. If it were the same in the past, Zuyun would have been overjoyed, but now he couldn't get excited. After packing up, Zuyun's eyes fell on the 2 nameless books. He knew that this was Yan Laoxi's lifelong experience in refining alchemy and making weapons. In addition, there is a box made of golden nan mua. Zuyun suddenly remembered, isn't this ice spirit grass? He quickly opened the box, and a blast of extremely cold air hit his face. In an instant, a layer of fine ice powder condensed on Zuyun's face. Nice one. Zuyun covered the box, walked out of the cave, and approached the edge of the medicine garden. All the elixirs looked at Zuyun. There is only one ice spirit grass, and it is difficult to obtain. The only way is to plant it in a stream of water. Zuyun squatted down and took out the ice spirit grass. After planting it, he picked off 3 leaves. It's too early for dawn, just in time to refine some ice elixirs. Then, I charged the ice tornado talisman with spirit for self-defense. Zuyun stood up and walked towards the alchemy room. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 443. Fen Tianyan, come out. Zuyun drank in a low voice, and Fen Tianyan jumped out and immediately got under the cauldron. Ever since he had the fire spirit pearl, Fen Tianyan no longer liked staying here. But at this time, he could also feel that Zuyun needed him, so he burned the furnace very hard. Soon, the furnace was heated, and thick smoke came out. Zuyun sighed softly, took out some auxiliary medicines from his ring and threw them into the furnace. Afterwards, he calmed down, immersed himself in his mind, threw all distracting thoughts out of his mind, and began to concentrate on condensing the power of the medicine. The role of the auxiliary medicine is to stabilize the ice spirit grass that is thrown in later. A whole plant of ice spirit grass only has a few leaves. Zuyun picked 3 pieces at once, only enough for him to refine one. There is no way, there are few materials, so we can only save some. Therefore, there can be no accidents. Zuyun concentrated on purifying all the required medicinal power from the auxiliary medicine, and then carefully placed the 3 leaves. At this time, he did not need to control the fire when making alchemy. He only needed a thought and could communicate with Fen Tianyan with his mind without making any mistakes. This is also the reason why Zuyun is confident that he can refine the ice spirit pill. However, it was Zuyun's first time refining high-level elixirs, so he was inevitably a little inexperienced. Fortunately, with his firm mind and concentration, he finally succeeded in condensing all the ice spiritual power of the ice spirit grass into a ball, which was finally wrapped up by the rest of the auxiliary power of the medicine garden. Elixir is complete. Zuyun opened his eyes suddenly, then stretched out his hand, opened the furnace lid, and a crystal elixir with light blue light flew out and fell into Zuyun's hand. It looks just like a spiritual pearl. Zuyun looked at it carefully, and a cool feeling passed through his palm, which was very comfortable. Taking out a porcelain bottle, Zuyun placed the ice spirit pill in it, took back Fen Tianyan, and then left the alchemy room. After thinking for a moment, Zuyun decided to go to the ranch to take a look. First, Zhao Kamang was asked to bring a transformation pill to Sangu. The second is to see how Lao Ma and Lao Jin are recovering. If these 2 demon kings return to their full glory, then Yan Laoxi will not die. You don't have to walk on eggshells yourself. Going to the fire dragon sect, he also prepared for the worst. Soon, Zuyun flew to the top of the lake. He saw a familiar sloppy old man sleeping soundly. The strength is only the 3rd level of chi refining. Isn't this Sangu, or who is it? A smile finally appeared on Zuyun's lips, and he shouted softly, 3 dogs. Hey, master. Sangu suddenly woke up, stood up like a carp, and ran towards Zuyun. A flattering smile appeared on his wrinkled face. Hey, master, last time you said you would give me a longevity pill when I became a human. Is that true? Zuyun slapped his forehead and almost forgot about it. Purple Yuanko and Rainbow Leaf both said that you can refine one from their leaves, it won't be a big problem. Of course, blood ginseng must also be used. However, thinking that the blood Xianxia still had some psychological shadow on him, Zuyun did not consider it. Humph, shameless. At this time, Lao Ma's disdainful voice came from the side, as if he couldn't get used to Sangu's flattering appearance. Unexpectedly, Sangu didn't care and retorted, these days, face is not as important as life. Oh, by the way, you have a face, not only big but also long. Zuyun laughed dumbly. When he was young, he heard that horse face was used to describe other people's faces. Now when he heard Sangu say it, it really suited the situation. He couldn't help but look towards Lao Ma. Although he turned into a human form, his face. How long does it look like now? Suddenly, the heavy heart due to Yan Laoxi's death couldn't help but feel a little lighter. It is impossible to live in the past when a person is dead. Zuyun was still thinking about this. Seeing Zuyun's bright eyes, Lao Ye subconsciously touched it, feeling full of embarrassment. After thinking about it, he simply closed his eyes and continued practicing. The 3 dogs raised their heads with a proud smile on their faces, like a victorious rooster. Okay, Zuyun said with a straight face, I will give you the Xiao Yuan Dan, but you have to be prepared, I may go to the fire dragon sect at any time. Master, so fast? Sangu immediately stared. Certainly. Zuyun shrugged and said, I have important things to do in the fire dragon section, tell me everything you know about anyone and anything. Only then will I give you the longevity pill when I am satisfied. Master, it's been a long time, I may not be able to remember. The 3 dogs immediately cried in mourning. Ha ha ha, you bitch, are you here too? Jin Jiao laughed inappropriately at the side. I want you to take care of it. Sangu turned around and bared his teeth. Jin Jiao was not afraid of him at all. If Zuyun wasn't here, he wouldn't mind teaching Sangu a lesson. A mere third-level chi refining person dares to challenge this demon king? A dog relies on the power of a human. Jin Jiao said contemptuously, then closed his eyes, curled up his body, and started practicing. His strength was severely damaged, and even if he swallowed countless demon pills, he could not regain the strength to transform into a human form for a while. Zuyun only felt a pain. These guys who can speak human language, can you not behave like human beings? After stroking his forehead, Zuyun said a few more words. He looked at Zhao Kamang waving his whip in the distance, as if he was training the monsters, and then left the ranch without disturbing them. Ziyun, please give me 3 leaves. Zuyun turned into a metal spirit body and took the initiative to speak to Ziwanko. Are you going to refine the longevity pill? As Ziwanko spoke, he shook his body, separated 3 leaves from the stem, and flew them into Zuyun's hands. Feeling the inexplicable power coming from the leaves, Zuyun couldn't help but feel a little excited. Well, thank you. These elixirs have not yet truly recognized Zuyun as their master, and Zuyun is embarrassed to consider himself the master. After watching Zuyun return to his human form and enter the alchemy room with 3 leaves in his hands, Huang Longshu said, it seems that something happened to him. Can you see this? Hong Yi asked strangely. Tone. Huang Longshu faintly uttered 2 words, and then stopped talking. Instead, he walked to the edge of the void and began to absorb the chaotic power in it like Zuyun was practicing. Listening to what he said, I also think that Zuyun has encountered something. Let's go and absorb some chaos power. Hong Ye threw down the purple yuen grass and went over to sit next to the yellow dragon tree. Immediately afterwards, all the elixirs approached Void and sat down side by side. From a distance, it looks like monks who are concentrating on cultivation. Unfortunately, Zuyun did not see this scene. At this time, he was refining the medicinal power of 3 leaves. It has been a long time since the last time the Xiao Yuan Dan was refined, but the refining of the Xiao Yuan Dan does not require any skills. A full hour later, Zuyunke refined a purple longevity pill. 3 dogs are a little over the top and need a good beating. I won't send them to him for the time being. I'll recharge the ice tornado first. The ice dragon scroll talisman was in Zuyun's ring, so he took out a few and placed them in front of him. Then, he took out the ice spirit pill and stuffed it into his mouth, then turned around and put the Xiao Yuan pill into the porcelain bottle. A cold feeling passed through my throat and quickly reached my lower abdomen. As the dainyi melted, a burst of ice power quickly rushed into Zuyun's belly. Is this ice spiritual power? Zuyun looked inside his body, his eyes following the ice power. All he saw was a touch of light blue, which quickly enveloped his seed. Immediately afterwards, the lines on the seed's outer skin also began to glow. But the amazing thing is that this light also shows a light blue color, which is exactly the same as the color of Bingley. Huh. Zuyun let out a sigh, but quickly recovered. There is only one ice spirit pill, and he is not asked to study why it is like this. He quickly controlled his spiritual power, and from the gap in the seed, chaotic power poured out continuously. But the magical thing is that after leaving the seeds, all these chaotic powers turned into ice spiritual powers. How amazing! Zuyun was so happy that he withdrew his consciousness from his body, turned around and took an ice tornado talisman, and quickly poured spiritual power into it. He didn't know how long the ice spiritual power would last, so he could only seize the time. The ice tornado is extremely powerful and can be used when he faces the siege of powerful enemies. The worst scenario he imagined was to be hostile to the fire dragon sect. After a cup of tea, the ice tornado was successfully recharged. After a moment of feeling, the ice power surrounding the seeds was probably only used up by about 20%. You can also charge 4 souls. Zuyun took out an ice tornado talisman again. Half an hour passed. All the potion has dissipated. Zuyun also got 5 ice tornado talismans infused with pure ice spiritual power. In front of him, there are several empty talismans. After thinking for a moment, Zuyun took 3 of them and used the power of chaos to charge his soul. True and false, false and true, when the time comes, who knows whether the ice tornado I use can kill nascent soul. A smile appeared at the corner of Zuyun's mouth. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 444. This kind of thing is something Zuyun is familiar with. The most representative one is that when he was still in the Spirit Sword sect, he used the super powerful Fireball talisman to win several duels, and he also concealed it and mixed several of them into the talisman hall through Yu Yulin, so that Lin Zhenyang and Mu Huhui could not find out that it was him. In fact, it was also thanks to Zuyun's good luck at that time, otherwise he would never have lived to this moment. After doing all this, Zuyun left the alchemy room directly, and did not see those spiritual medicines sitting in a row, stirring up the chaotic power in the void. Sitting in the formation, looking up at the horizon, the full moon was slowly setting in the west, and it was not far from dawn. Zuyun planned to withdraw the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation when he saw the flying boat. He did not see any danger in this mountain. Although he was not afraid, he did not want to cause any more trouble at this time. Just wait for the flying boat to arrive and follow it to the Fire Dragon sect as soon as possible. Of course, he also wanted to try his best to get the 100 Fire Dragon pills. This can be said to be what Yan Laoxi exchanged his life for. After a long time, the moon had not yet completely set, and several black shadows were shuttling through the mountains and forests in the southeast. Looking at that direction, it seemed that they were going to plunge into their own formation. Zuyun's face condensed, and he stood up suddenly. Not only were those black shadows coming one after another, but there was also a Jindan stage right above him. Someone is coming, and there are so many. His face condensed slightly, and just as he was about to use the earth escape technique to hide underground directly from the formation, those black shadows all stopped. At the same time, Zhen Wengziu, who was flying in the sky, also fell. It's him. Zuyun did not move, and stared at him straight, until Zhen Wengziu fell to the ground and stood in front of a group of puppets. His eyes followed closely, and Zuyun realized that those puppets had no expression on their faces, like living dead. Even without releasing any spiritual consciousness, he could recognize with his naked eyes that these had no vitality at all. Puppet. Or corpse. Zuyun's heart trembled, thinking to himself, why did Zhen Wengziu suddenly appear here? While he was wondering, Zhen Wengziu's voice came into his ears again. Strange, why didn't I run into that guy Yan Laoxi? I was chasing him so closely. Zhen Wengziu didn't know that his mumbling made Zuyun know his intention instantly. But the other party was numerous and powerful, and Zuyun felt that the 300 puppets were very difficult to deal with. He didn't dare to act rashly, even though many puppets were already standing within the range of his self-destruction array. It turned out that he was chasing Yan Lao, so he came with bad intentions, and good people don't come. If it's not for Qiu Qi, then it's for my chaos sword. He just muttered to himself that he found Yan Laoxi, but he didn't mention me. Could it be that he mistook me for Yan Laoxi? Zuyun's mind was spinning rapidly, thinking while staring at Zhen Wengziu's movements. At this time, Zhen Wengziu took out the sound transmission jade talisman. He knocked on the jade talisman 3 times, and after the jade talisman responded, Zhen Wengziu spoke up, saying, Old Wu, it's dawn, and I haven't caught up with Yan Laoxi. Over there, Old Wu's voice came immediately, it stands to reason that Yan Laoxi is already injured, and it's a long way to the Yanlong section. He had someone send the fire dragon pill on a top-grade flying boat before, and he must have taken the top-grade flying boat back. You just need to pay attention to the flying boat. After Old Wu's analysis, Zhen Wengzhou suddenly realized it, but hurriedly said, "Old Wu, no matter how many people from the Fire Dragon sect came." Before he finished speaking, he was quickly interrupted by Old Wu, "If anyone sees it, they must be killed. Not only must they be killed, but all the bodies must be brought back to the pavilion for processing." "Yes, Old Wu, I understand." Zhen Wengzhou put away the jade talisman and asked all the puppets to hide behind the tree trunk. "Face the northwest, if a flying boat comes, it is impossible to find them." Watching most of the puppets slowly exit the range of the self-destruct array, Zuyun hesitated whether to attract some first to weaken the opponent's power. Unexpectedly, a fiery red light came from the northwest at a high speed against the sunset. "Haha, it's just in time." Zhen Wengzhou was overjoyed, reached into his arms and took out a talisman. Zuyun looked from a distance and couldn't see clearly. This talisman that changes the world can definitely trick him down. Then I will sneak attack him and transform into his appearance, and then wait for Yan Laoxi to come to the door again. Talisman that changes the world? Zuyun had never heard of or seen such a talisman. But judging from the literal meaning, it can definitely change a person's appearance. After a little thought in his mind, Zuyun used the Breaking Void Spirit Eye technique. Zhen Wengzhou never thought that Zuyun was not far from him and staring at him. He only saw him muttering something and then sticking the talisman on his forehead. Zuyun's eyes fixed, and he saw that Zhen Wengzhou's facial features kept changing and twisting, and began to become old. At the same time, his long black hair turned red. His upper lip and chin both grew the same fiery red beard. A moment later, a living Yan Laoxi appeared in front of him. What's even more amazing is that Zuyun found that his Pakuling Jingju couldn't see through Zhen Wengzhou's true face at all. What a mysterious talisman! How was this drawn? Zuyun was secretly shocked, looking left and right, but couldn't find any clues. Until the flying boat approached, Zhen Wengzhou shouted to the top, and what surprised Zuyun even more was that even the voice was exactly the same as Yan Laoxi's. Fear. Really? The monk who was flying the boat quickly dropped down after hearing Zhen Wengzhou's voice. Without any doubt, he walked towards Zhen Wengzhou. "Elder Yan, here are the 100 fire dragon pills you want." This monk was only in the middle stage of pill formation, and he never thought that the Yan Laoxi in front of him was fake. A flash of greed flashed in Zhen Wengzhou's eyes. These 100 fire dragon pills were worth 1 million spiritual stones. He can totally swallow it all to himself. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, put the storage bag containing the fire dragon pill into his arms, nodded pretendingly, "Very good, then take me back to the sect now. Elder Yan invites a longboat." The monk turned around respectfully and was about to lead Zhen Wengzhou into the boat when he suddenly noticed a murderous aura coming from behind him. "Elder Yan!" He was shocked and instantly burst into flames. At this time, Zhen Wengzhou's killer move had arrived, hitting him hard on the back. The fire suddenly dissipated, and at the same time, he flew out. In disbelief, he turned around with difficulty and saw a face full of evil smiles. But fortunately, he discovered it in time, and the flames reduced a lot of Zhen Wengzhou's attack power. This palm only seriously injured him, but did not kill him. Just when Zhen Wengzhou was about to step forward again to deal with him, Zuyun also moved. Self-destruction formation, started for me. As Zuyun's figure walked out of the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, he quickly activated the spirit guiding formation. The spirit guiding array, like the fuse of gunpowder, triggered the self-destruction arrays one by one. In the air, there was an extremely violent surge of spiritual power in an instant, as powerful as destroying the heaven and earth. Immediately afterwards, Zuyun held the chaos sword, condensed the burning sky flame, and slashed it down with one sword. Boom! At this moment, this mountain platform was like a volcanic eruption, and the boundless sea of fire was like lava spewing from the ground, rushing towards Zhen Wengzhou. Boy, it's you. Zhen Wengzio screamed, but realized that her situation was very dangerous. He didn't care about the monk and Zuyun at all, and immediately rose into the sky. At the same time, countless talismans were scattered underneath him. The shield formed by various rays of light protected him layer by layer. Zuyun did not expect that Zhen Wengzio had so many tricks and used the talisman so exquisitely. Unexpected. Run. Zuyun also threw out several earth wall talismans in front of the monk, just to help him buy a few breaths of time to withstand the explosion of the self-destruction array. As for Zuyun himself, he quickly flashed past, and after a few thunder escape techniques, he had already escaped to a safe area. His eyes narrowed slightly, and he immediately locked onto Zhen Wengzio, who was still rising into the air, and then made several heaven-gathering thunder talismans. A ray of red light suddenly rushed to Zuyun's side. The monk obviously felt that Zuyun was his only life-saving straw, and he fled to where he was without hesitation. Boom! Zhen Wengzio, who was rising straight up, heard the thunder and looked up slightly, only to find that dark clouds had gathered above his head. At the same time, lightning flashed towards him in the blink of an eye. Good boy, this is also a talisman. He reached into his arms and took out a few more talismans and quickly crushed them. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 445. Zuyun seemed to see himself in Zhen Wengzio. When facing a strong enemy, he would give priority to using talismans. Because talismans do not consume too much spiritual power. Zuyun is very experienced in this regard. But at this time, it seems that Zhen Wengzio has quite a few talismans on him, and the timing of his use is just right. The thunder came in an instant and quickly hit the shield above his head. And under his feet, the self-destruct array also set off an endless spiritual power turbulence, which blasted up from below. Zhen Wengzio was attacked from both sides, but he responded in time and the talisman was powerful, so he did not suffer much damage. But when the momentum dissipated, Zhen Wengzio's face was extremely ugly and gloomy. Just because he brought 300 puppets comparable to the Jindan period, half of them were injured by the self-destruct array. The dust and smoke have settled, and under the wounds on the ground, there are all broken limbs and arms. These puppets have no independent thinking. Without Zhen Wengzio's order, they had been standing still. The puppets close to the self-destruction array naturally bore the extremely powerful power of the self-destruction array head-on. Damn it, kid, I want you to die. At this moment, even if he killed Zuyun, took back Xiuqi's chaos sword, and added 100 fire dragon pills and the top-grade flying boat, he could not offset his loss this time. How could he not be angry? Zhen Wengzio was furious, and in the image of Yan Laoxi, he was even more ferocious and terrifying. He suddenly opened his hands and quickly took out several talismans, throwing them at Zuyun one after another. Hide well. Zuyun wanted to tell the monk beside him, but before he finished speaking, he saw that he had already fled far away on the top-grade flying boat. Zuyun didn't have time to think about it, and threw several earth wall talismans again. The ground rumbled, and the earth walls rose one after another like bamboo shoots after rain. Zhen Wengzio's talismans followed closely and all hit the earth wall. Boy, don't just hide behind, show us your skills. Zhen Wengzio roared and swung the talisman again. Zuyun sneered in his heart. He didn't believe that Zhen Wengzio had more talismans than himself. However, at this time, the attacks triggered by these talismans exploded one after another on the earth wall, and Zuyun was extremely distressed. In his opinion, these talismans should all be his. Because he had no pressure on Zhen Wengzio at all. The reason why he was allowed to attack recklessly at this time was to let him relax his vigilance. After the Jushin Leifu lost its surprise attack effect, Zuyun also knew that he couldn't act too hastily. It was the right way to take steady steps and find Zhen Wengzio's flaws. If he was to kill him directly, Zuyun would have a way. But the problem was, Zhen Wenxiu had 100 fire dragon pills on him. And he saw with his own eyes that Zhen Wenxiu stuffed the fire dragon pill into the storage bag. Storage bags are different from the Sumuru ring. Storage bags will be damaged. In this case, Zuyun prepared to be beaten. Sure enough, seeing that Zuyun could only keep putting earth wall talismans, Zhen Wenxiu's eyes became more fierce. He felt that he was still rational, but he didn't expect that Zuyun was already calculating him. The talismans were thrown at him as if they were free, and Zuyun erected earth walls one after another. Zhen Wenxiu also slowly dropped in height. He didn't notice it at all. Zuyun was slowly moving forward with each earth wall. He knew very well that only by shortening the distance could he hope to get close with the thunder escape technique and kill him with the chaos sword. But obviously, since old Wu dared to let Zhen Wenxiu come alone with 300 puppets to do this business of killing people and stealing treasures and destroying corpses, it was enough to show that his strength was not weak. As the height decreased, Zhen Wenxiu's mouth also showed a sinister smile. While throwing talismans, he gave instructions to the remaining dead soldiers. When Zuyun and Zhen Wen were only 200 steps away, those dead soldiers moved. The momentum of the late Jindan stage suddenly surged from the mountains and forests, and the puppets were fearless and rushed towards Zuyun. Not good. Hearing such momentum, Zuyun was shocked. I was thinking that I could use the thunder escape technique to escape to the bottom of Zhen Wenxiu, and then use the Wuji sword technique. But those puppets rushed from there, and I escaped again. That would be a delivery to the door. He frowned, and Zhen Wenxiu's crazy laughter came from the air about 5 feet in front of him. Boy, I didn't expect you to have so many earth wall talismans. But you can block my talismans, how can you block the attacks of so many people? As he spoke, the ground shook. All these puppets came running, holding all kinds of magic weapons in their hands. Zhen Wenxiu's order to them was to do their best to kill Zuyun. The murderous aura emerged from his soulless eyes, all locked on Zuyun. It seems that I can't hide my weakness. Zuyun took a deep breath, and a talisman appeared out of thin air in his left hand. Zhen Wenxiu, you do have a lot of talismans, but how about mine? After saying that, Zuyun also saw that the puppets had already run to the bottom of Zhen Wenxiu, so he quickly threw the talisman out. Woo woo woo. All around, the cold wind suddenly rose, as sharp as a knife. When the temperature dropped sharply, the cold wind from all directions quickly rotated to one place, forming a tornado. What kind of talisman is this? Zhen Wenxiu's face changed. Since he was good at using talismans, he naturally saw a lot of them. But how has he ever seen an ice tornado talisman? This is the talisman on the fragment of the heavenly talisman. The ice tornado formed in front of Zuyun, and under his control, it quickly swept towards Zhen Wenxiu. Not long after, we met the puppet who was rushing at the front. In an instant, the powerful suction sucked those puppets in. Once upon a time. The sound of the wind, mixed with the sound of the sharp blade of the ice knife cutting into the puppet's body, was full of chilling intent. No, this talisman, there is wind and ice. This is definitely an ancient talisman. Zhen Wenxiu's frightened eyes flashed with enthusiasm. He felt that the number of puppets he could control was rapidly decreasing. But I don't feel any distress at all. If this kind of talisman could be mastered by myself. Zhen Wenxiu became crazy, thinking only about how to make the ice tornado talisman. With his eyes red, he took out an even weirder talisman from his arms. While Zuyun's attention was all on controlling the ice tornado, he quickly threw it towards Zuyun. Wow! The talisman melted immediately after taking action, turning into arrays of formations, and quickly spread towards Zuyun. Array talisman. Zuyun's eyes flashed. How could he have imagined that Zhen Wenxiu, who was just an alchemy monk, would have such a rare thing? The formation talisman is by no means an ordinary talisman. Instead, the formation patterns are engraved in the talisman. When activated, the formation is instantly formed. However, ordinary formation symbols are useless. It may have been used by Zhen Wengziu. Obviously this formation is extraordinary. Zhu Yun thought about it and wanted to use the thunder escape technique to dodge. Unexpectedly, when he flashed 200 steps away, these formation patterns followed closely behind him. Not good. Zhu Yun was shocked and thought about using the earth escape technique to escape again, but it was already too late. The array pattern has completely imprisoned him. Moreover, these formation patterns were still shrinking and bound towards his body. After a moment, they were bound to his body. Ha ha ha, let's see where you run this time. At this time, Zhen Wengziu also flew over and landed in front of Zhu Yun. The red light in his eyes had dissipated, and he looked at Zhu Yun with a playful expression. No matter how many talismans you have, so what? If you had used that tornado on me just now, I might not have had the chance to use this trapped immortal formation talisman. It's a pity that you only used it on those puppets. Humph, how are you doing? Zhu Yun looked alert. While Zhen Wengziu was speaking, he tried to contact the seeds again and was able to use the power of chaos, but was greatly restricted. But for Zhu Yun, as long as it can be used, that's fine. Sometimes his killing moves don't require his own spiritual power. Ha ha ha, Zhen Wengziu laughed wildly and said, what if I don't wait? You wasted one of my sleeping immortal formation talismans, so you must die. However, I am easy to talk to and can choose the way to die for you. Of course, the premise is that you hand over the method of drawing the tornado talisman. Zhen Wengziu's smile disappeared, and his greedy look reappeared. Zhu Yun sneered in his heart, since you have something you want, it means you won't do it yet. Then I'll have some fun with you. I bought that talisman from Yazhu. I can't draw it. Zhu Yun pretended to be panicked. Boy, do you think I will believe it? Zhen Wengziu immediately turned cold and said, don't think I can't see your way of using talismans. Although it's clumsy and not worth mentioning, you can still see it. Be honest, otherwise. As he spoke, Zhu Yun felt that the formation marks on his body suddenly shrank, and there was boundless pain. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 446. Zhu Yun never thought that Zhen Wengziu would be so decisive. In pain, he thought that he had overlooked the ruthlessness of the Peeper Realm cultivator. It seems that he can't hold this mentality in the future. This is playing with fire. What if Zhen Wengziu simply kills him and searches him? I say. In this case, Zhu Yun can only beg for mercy. But he has also made up his mind that it's time to use a killing move. Sure enough, after Zhu Yun spoke, the array pattern on his body relaxed. Zhu Yun let out a long breath and said, I have a method to make talismans in my ring. I'll get it for you. Really? Zhen Wengziu's eyes were happy, and a hint of murderous intent flashed across his eyes. Zhu Yun's original intention was to buy some time so that he could take action. But he didn't expect that Zhen Wengziu actually planned to kill Zhu Yun directly. This can only be said that Zhu Yun is not experienced enough. For Zhen Wengziu, since what he wanted was in the ring, did he need to wait for Zhu Yun to take it personally? When the murderous intent flashed across his eyes, Zhen Wengziu moved. With 30% of his spiritual power, he blasted towards Zhu Yun. Unfortunately, when Zhu Yun discovered his murderous intention, he also made preparations. Leaving fire. Endless flames surged out of the fire spirit pearl at the heart, instantly wrapping Zhu Yun up. Zhen Wengziu's palm blasted on Zhu Yun, but it was equivalent to infecting himself with the Li fire. Boy, why can you still use spiritual power? Zhen Wengzhou screamed, full of disbelief. He was also burned by the Li fire. Zhu Yun was not feeling well either, and he took the palm hard. Fortunately, when he was in the foundation building period, he had eaten a lot of bodybuilding pills, and his physical strength was much stronger than other cultivators of the same realm. Moreover, Zhen Wengzhou thought he had a sure win, so he used 30% of his spiritual power. Because of this, Zhu Yun did not die, and he had the opportunity to pursue the victory. Originally, he wanted to use the Chaos Sword to sneak attack, but Zhen Wengzhou's movements were too fast. Now, just burn him with the fire of separation. Fire! Zhu Yun endured the pain on his body, controlled the pure fire power, and rushed towards Zhen Wengzhou, who was retreating quickly. And Zhen Wengzhou's face was already horrified. He thought that Zhu Yun was just a cultivator who mainly used talismans. He thought that after using the talisman of the trapped immortal array, he would not be able to use his spiritual power, so that Zhu Yun would be like a mortal ant. But the situation in front of him was not only like this. Zhu Yun did not use talismans, but used magic instead. The magic was still so powerful. Without time to think about it, Zhen Wengzhou pinched a talisman in each hand. One was used to extinguish the flames on his body, and the other was thrown towards Zhu Yun. Boy, even if you don't use talismans, I can solve you. As soon as the voice fell, the thrown talisman instantly turned into a huge wave. Unlike Zhu Yun's giant wave talisman, this giant wave was stacked up and surged, and it was entangled with the sea of fire formed by Li Wo, preventing him from continuing to attack. For a moment, water and fire blended, making a hissing sound. As a result, water vapor rose and filled the surroundings, forming a foggy place here. Zhen Wengzhou took out another breath-retaining talisman and pasted it on his forehead. The breath disappeared without a trace. Huh, that's it? Zhu Yun sneered disdainfully, and also restrained his breath, and at the same time used the breaking void spirit eyes technique. Although the seed was trapped, affecting his output of chaos power, using this technique was enough. A silhouette appeared in his eyes. Zhu Yun couldn't help but be surprised. It turned out that Zhen Wengzhou was lying straight on the ground. Ha! Pretending to be a corpse? Then I'll make you a real corpse. Zhu Yun was happy in his heart, but he pretended to be unaware, and his eyes were locked on Zhen Wengzhou. He waved the Chaos Sword randomly in his hand. In Zhen Wengzhou's opinion, Zhu Yun's sword had no rules at all. But in fact, this is the real Wuji sword art. One move after another. As long as there is a move, it is a sword art. This kid is panicking. Zhen Wengzhou can also see Zhu Yun, because after the breath-suppressing talisman, he also has the void-breaking talisman. He is a cultivator who is good at using talismans. He is even a rare high-level talisman master in the Peepa realm. But he doesn't know that Zhu Yun has been through hundreds of battles and has used talismans in almost every battle. False and true, true and false. Seeing that Zhu Yun did not come directly towards him, and the sea of fire was entangled with his talismans, Zhen Wengzhou began to control the surviving puppets and lowered his steps to rush towards the water mist. Under his control, about 50 people were divided into two groups to surround him. After seeing that Zhu Yun was still able to use spiritual power even though he was trapped in the immortal array talisman, Zhen Wengzhou no longer dared to underestimate Zhu Yun. He almost died in Zhu Yun's hands just now. Then only by letting the puppet take the lead can he ensure his safety and save his talismans to the greatest extent. Hey, where are the people? Zhu Yun danced with the sword while deliberately speaking, also to confuse Zhen Wengzhou. Hey, people are coming. And there are 50 of them at once. I hope to give you a surprise. Zhen Wengzhou listened to the tone and felt that Zhu Yun was really panicked. The two of them had their own ulterior motives and fought wits and courage. But Zhen Wengzhou was still a little arrogant, and he didn't know that Zhu Yun's methods were far beyond his imagination, so he was just one move away. What he wanted to scheme against was plotted against by Zhu Yun. In fact, if he makes good use of the influence of the trapped immortal formation on Zhu Yun, and then uses 50 puppets to attack Zhu Yun, victory will definitely be in his favor. But Zhen Wengzhou is just a talisman master after all, suitable for using talisman to control the field from behind. This is the biggest difference between him and Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun was used to being alone and used talismans to create opportunities for himself in the battle. Zhen Wengzhou, on the other hand, used talismans to create opportunities for the puppets. Admittedly, he was very responsive and experienced. But in a real life and death fight, he is not even a little bit worse than Zhu Yun. What's more, his every move was clearly seen by Zhu Yun, and he had been plotted long ago. No, we can't find him like this. I'm in the light and he's in the dark. We can only get out of this fog first. Zhu Yun pretended to be anxious and turned half a circle, as if he had lost his way here, but he deliberately aimed towards Zhen Wengzhou. Then, he pinched an ordinary ice tornado talisman in his hand. This action immediately alerted Zhen Wengzhou. He stared at Zhu Yun, only to see him looking around blankly, but then threw the ice tornado more than 10 steps to his left. This prodigal. Sensing the cold wind blowing around, Zhen Wengzhou cursed in his heart. Such a mysterious talisman was actually used by him to blow water mist. We pet beasts don't dare to use it like this even if they have spirit stone minds. While cursing secretly, the ice tornado had already taken shape, but it made Zhen Wengzhou extremely confused. Because compared with the super powerful ice tornado talisman, not only is this tornado more than twice the size, it is also not as powerful as before. Even Zhen Wengzhou, who was not far away, was not affected by the tornado. Strange, what's going on? Just when he was stunned, a fire suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. He saw a big sword covered with fire coming towards him. The tip of the sword pointed directly at his lower abdomen, and the fire on it kept dancing, revealing a ferocious face. No, this kid already knew I was here. Zhen Wengzhou suddenly realized that the ice tornado talisman was Zhu Yunlei's distraction. But at this time, it was too late for him to run away. He was already lying on the ground. No matter how fast he turned over, it would still take at least half a breath, right? Not to mention, he is just a talisman master. In desperation, Zhen Wengzhou had no choice but to take out a talisman and crush it quickly. The fire is coming and the shield is taking shape. The chaos sword slammed into the shield. Crack. The shield immediately shattered, but Zhen Wengzhou had already stood up and was ready to escape. Boy, you wasted one of my best talismans again. Zhen Wengzhou gritted his teeth, but unexpectedly, the fire on the chaos sword suddenly separated from the sword and rushed towards Zhen Wengzhou. How did he know that Zhu Yun had already recovered and Zhen Wengzhou would have a backup plan, so the fire on this sword was burning sky flame? But Zhen Wengzhou didn't know it and thought Zhu Yun was still using Li Huo. He repeated his old tricks, and another layer upon layer of huge waves came out of thin air. However, this time, Fen Tianyan suddenly shrank, dodged, and moved around, dodging countless huge waves. By the time Zhen Wengzhou reacted, Fen Tianyan had already pounced on his body. Fen Tianyan concentrated his fire power and burned directly through Zhen Wengzhou's lower abdomen, forcing it towards his golden elixir. The screams began. Had Zhen Wengzhou ever suffered such pain? He lay on the ground again, but this time he kept rolling, until Zhu Yun walked in front of him and said lightly, "No matter how many talismans there are, so what?" But at this time, dozens of spiritual powers surged in and pressed down on Zhu Yun head-on. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 447. It's the surviving puppets. Zhu Yun reacted very quickly and immediately took out 4 earth wall talismans and threw them in front of him. Just like the golden dragon was besieged at that time, a square dungeon was formed. Only this time, Zuyun trapped himself in the middle and protected himself with an earth wall. He doesn't have a shield charm like Zhen Wengxiu's. The attacks of those puppets all hit the earth wall, and Zuyun also stepped forward and pierced the chaos sword into Zhen Wengxiu's abdomen. Zhen Wengxiu screamed, and the golden elixir that had been burned by the burning sky flame was pierced by Zuyun's sword. But when the screams stopped, the surroundings suddenly became quiet. Those puppets will no longer attack the earth wall. Huh. Zuyun frowned, and at this moment, the earth wall had expired and burst into pieces. I saw those 50 puppets all turned into sculptures and stood frozen in place. Some raised their swords and were about to cut them off. You also held a sword and was about to stab him. But all kinds of movements are impossible to do. Zuyun looked at Zhen Wengxiu's body, then at the puppets, and suddenly understood. These should be under Zhen Wengxiu's control. Now they have lost control, that's why they are like this. Heaving a sigh of relief, Zuyun glanced at the puppets and used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. At such a close distance, Zuyun discovered that these puppets had no sanity of their own at all. He touched his chin, thought for a moment, and then sent the puppets into the pasture one by one. Rather than killing them, it would be better to keep them for now. And being able to include them in it means that they are dead objects, really puppets. After all this was done, Zuyun set his sights on Zhen Wengxiu's body again and took out his storage bag. Then, he threw a ball of fire and burned him to ashes. By the way, where is the Fire Dragon sect disciple who came to pick up Yan Laoxi? Zuyun only remembered that the monk ran away before. Now he looked around and saw no one at all. He frowned again and thought to himself, could he have run back to the Fire Dragon sect? So timid. After shaking his head and thinking for a moment, Zuyun decided to go back to the Fire Dragon sect. Little did they know, the monk had long been frightened. While Zuyun was fighting with Zhen Wengxiu, how could he dare to stay? Furthermore, he was seriously injured. Let alone whether he could survive if he stayed. Even if he survived, so what? Obviously, that Yan Laoxi is pretending to be someone, so Yan Laoxi is already dead. As he was speeding along, he was thinking about how to explain the matter to his sect, and he quickly sorted out his thoughts. What does the life and death of others have to do with him? As long as you can save your life. At this time, Zuyun entered the 9 turns and 9 suns formation again. He needed to enter the immortal mansion and take a good look at what was in Zhen Wengxiu's storage bag. What makes him most coveted are naturally the various mysterious talismans. If you can master it yourself, your combat power will definitely be improved to another level. In this way, with more means, if something unexpected happens when entering the Fire Dragon sect, it will be easier for me to deal with it. Anyway, the monk who came to meet him ran away, so he didn't have to rush for a while. And judging from the current situation, it seems that only Yu's Haibai and the people in the Beast Pet Pavilion know that they are here. It must have been hidden from the other monks. Entering the immortal mansion, Zuyun sat on the stone bed and poured out all the contents of Zhen Wengxiu's bag. As expected, there are all kinds of talismans. In addition, there is a bottle with a hint of fire power on it, which is obviously the Fire Dragon pill mentioned by Yan Laoxi. He poured one on the palm of his hand and sniffed it gently, and then he knew more or less the medicinal properties of Fire Dragon pill. It should be a pill that can increase the fire spirit power in a short period of time, and the effect is pretty good. It should look similar to the ice spirit pill. Zuyun put away the pill. For him, the Fire Dragon pill didn't seem to be very useful. Then, he looked at the talismans one by one. After counting, there were nearly 100 talismans, but Zuyun didn't recognize these talismans. On the contrary, you can judge the attributes of the talisman to some extent by the direction of the runes on it. These talismans accounted for about 70%. Zuyun didn't recognize the remaining 30 or so. He looked carefully and found that these talismans seemed to be old and were probably not painted by Zhen Wengziu. By the way, he said before that he used the sleeping immortal formation talisman. Zuyun frowned and suddenly remembered. It shocked him at the time. If it weren't for his special skills and spiritual power, as well as other means, he might be the one who died today. He looked through the 30 talismans carefully and finally found a formation talisman. But he was not sure whether this was the sleeping immortal formation talisman. Zuyunhui formation and talisman are also good, but superimposing the two is not. After looking at it for a long time, I couldn't figure out the reason, so I simply put away these talismans and started to look inside my body. There is nothing unusual about the seeds. Maybe the formation talisman was cast by Zhen Wengziu, so the effect should dissipate with his death. After trying to use his spiritual power without any effect, Zuyun set his sights on the shackle-like engraving. This formation talisman seems to be similar to the trapped immortal formation talisman. I don't know if there is any relationship between the two. Zuyun sighed, thinking that if there was a chance, he must find a way to learn the formation talisman in the Peeper realm. Now I have no clue, and I can't figure it out. For now, this shackle is more beneficial than harmful to him. But it only allows him to use the chaos palm without draining the spiritual power in his body at once. In addition to talismans and elixirs, there are some magic tools on the stone bed. However, these magic tools are not in Zuyun's eyes, but it is better than nothing. Zuyun transferred all of them into his ring. After cleaning up all this, there were only 2 black-covered books on the stone bed, which looked a bit old. Kung Fu. Zuyun perked up and took a book at random. As soon as he turned a page, his eyes suddenly opened. Puppet Control Soul Technique. Isn't this the technique that Tang Zhuyang uses to control puppets? Zuyun thought about it for a while, and then remembered the puppet control soul technique he had learned, and then compared it with the book one by one, and it was exactly the same. Could it be that Tang Zhuyang came to Peeper Realm at that time and entered the puppet control demon sect? Zuyun shook his head and threw this insignificant thought out of his mind. Tang Zhuyang is dead, it doesn't matter whether he is from the puppet controlling demon sect or not. What's important is what is the relationship between Zhen Wengziu and the puppet controlling demon sect. After matching the skills on the first page one by one, Zuyun turned to the second page. He was overjoyed when he read through the words. It turned out that what was written on the second page was a deeper method of controlling puppets. What Zuyun got from Tang Zhuyang was actually the entry method of the puppet control soul technique. Most of them are simple methods used to turn people into puppets and control these puppets. But this page talks about controlling puppets of a higher level. The strength of the more than 50 puppets he collected is all in the Jindan stage. If he can make good use of it, this is obviously a force that cannot be underestimated. After entering the Fire Dragon sect, it may also achieve unexpected results. Moreover, the second-level control method can not only control puppets more easily, but also make these puppets play a great role. Zuyun continued to read on, and the content in it opened his eyes. At the same time, he also knew that if he wanted to regain control of these puppets, the first thing to do was to erase the traces of these puppets. Then, let them take the puppet soul pills he refined, and they can really control these puppets. Of course, it's okay not to take them. The difference is that, first, the control is slightly weaker, and second, if they meet the original owners of these puppets again, they are very likely to lose control and turn against them. Zuyun will not allow such a situation to happen. Because he killed Zhen Wengziu, he has Old Wu and the Beast Pet Pavilion behind him. And the puppet soul pills taken by these puppets are all provided by Old Wu. After reading the puppet soul technique, Zuyun already had a plan in his mind. If you want to control these puppets again, you need the puppet soul pill. I am short of various spiritual medicines for alchemy, and I must go to the Fire Dragon sect. If possible, it's best to stay. After putting the book aside, Zhu Yun's eyes fell on the last book. He reached out and took it, and opened the first page. Suddenly, his whole body was shocked, and his face showed ecstasy. Talisman Deo. This is also a book about talismans. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 448. Fulu can be said to be one of the earliest methods Zhu Yun learned. He had an inexplicable emotion towards the talisman. During the fight with Zhen Wengziu, various unseen talismans almost opened up a new world for him. How could I not be excited when I saw another book about talismans? He quickly turned to the second page. Different from the fragment of Tianfu, this Tao of Talisman does not have any strange phenomena. Zhu Yun looked at the first page and felt that it was eye-opening. The invisibility talisman, the wind escape talisman, the breathing talisman, the heaven-changing talisman. It turned out to be a variety of talismans not used in combat. Zhu Yun was filled with excitement. Isn't this what he is missing? He has the talisman for attack, and for now, it is completely sufficient. The super-level Fire Phoenix Talisman and Ice Tornado are completely comparable to a strike in the infant stage. If you are facing someone who is in the same level as the pill-forming stage, you can also fight with the Heaven-Gathering Thunder Talisman. But limited by his own realm, facing the nascent soul stage, he had no choice but to escape. And if you can master these talismans, you can not only increase your chances of escaping, but also have a chance to counterattack. Zhu Yun turned to the last page with a smile and learned about all the talismans. But soon I became a little discouraged. These talismans actually require a specific mixture of elixir juice and cinnabar to draw them. Moreover, there are no formation talismans. Unable to create a talisman, Zhu Yun sighed. It seemed that the Fire Dragon sect had to go. But he took out the talismans in the ring and threw them all over the Tao of Talisman. Except for those formation symbols. After counting, there are 3 talismans for changing the world, 3 talismans for breathing, and only 1 talisman for invisibility. The rest, Zhu Yun feels, has little effect for the time being. After placing the puppet controlling soul technique and Tao of Talisman on the stone shelf, Zhu Yun went to the ranch. Come to the edge of the lake. Sangu looked at a group of sculpture-like puppets, looking here and smelling there. Seeing Zhu Yun appear, he ran forward with a smile on his face and said with a charming smile, "Master, are these the subordinates you found for me?" From the looks of it, they seemed to be in the elixir formation stage. It turned out that Zhao Kamang commanded thousands of monsters on the other side of the lake, which had long made Sangu jealous. Not long after he could transform into a human form, Zhu Yun sent in so many puppets that he thought they were prepared by Zhu Yun for him. Zhu Yun was speechless for a while, but after thinking about it, it seemed that Sangu's suggestion was indeed a good one. All he needs to do is refine the puppet soul control pill and teach him the method of control. When fighting with others, there is no need to be distracted and controlled. However, Zhu Yun knew Sangu's temperament, so he did not agree directly. Instead, he smiled and said, "It's not a bad idea to be your subordinate, but these people can't move. Are you going to serve them?" "Hey, master, don't think I can't tell that these are all puppets. How can they be considered human beings? Just teach me the control method. Anyway, their souls are gone. They are easy to control. I am also the 3rd level of chi refining after all." Zhu Yun saw the triumphant expression on his villain's face and couldn't help but roll his eyes and cursed, "They are no longer human, but you are a real dog. You are only at the 3rd level of chi refining, you are so embarrassed. Get out of here and practice, it's okay, let Lao Ma and Lao Jin figure it out for you." Sangu shrank his neck, not knowing whether Zhu Yun was really angry or fake, so he quickly rolled to the side and pretended to sit down cross-legged. But before his butt was hot from sitting, he ran up to him with a shy face and said, Master, Lao Zhao has a whip, why don't you also give me a magic weapon? This way I will have motivation to practice. Zuyun was dumbfounded, these three dogs were so shameless. However, as the saying goes, a tree without bark will inevitably die, but a person without shame will be invincible. After thinking for a moment, Zuyun nodded, ducked back into the small courtyard, glanced at the shelf, found a slender stick, and then returned to Sangu. No, here you go. Zuyun threw the stick over. Sangu stared and said, Master, just give me a stick. What do you want? Those puppets are not disobedient. Do you want a filial son to emerge from the stick? As he spoke, he danced with the stick. It's quite convenient. Believe it or not, I will beat you with this stick. Zuyun said with a dark face. He still didn't know what the stick was used for, but since it was on the same shelf as the whip, he thought it had a use, but he didn't have time to study it. Just in time to keep the three dogs away. Why beat me? Sangu quickly put away the stick with a look of horror on his face. Humph, use this stick to beat the dog. Zuyun snorted coldly, scaring the three dogs and running away. Master, I suddenly realized something, I want to practice. Zuyun shook his head, smiled helplessly, and then walked towards the golden dragon. How are you feeling lately? After getting closer, he found that Jinjiao's figure had become a lot thicker. It was obvious that the demon pill prepared for him was very effective. Master, it's not bad. But it will take at least half a year to restore the realm of the Demon King. So long. Zuyun frowned, but then relaxed. It's half a year here, and no more than 1 month in the outside world, so he smiled and said, practice well, I'll go see Lao Ma. This is undoubtedly good news. If Jinjiao can fight, it will be of great help to him, and he will have confidence in the Fire Dragon sect. There are some things that you can do boldly. Lao Ma and Jinjiao couldn't deal with each other very well. Although they couldn't fight anymore, Lao Ma still chose to go to the other side. Over there is the range of activities of Little Brown and Little Gray. Owner. Seeing Zuyun, Lao Ma opened his eyes and bowed slightly. I chased him all the way to Peeper Realm, but I can't find any news about Lao Zu for the time being. Zuyun sighed in his heart, after all, he promised Lao Ma. But it's not like I'm sorry for Lao Ma, because the condition for Lao Ma to surrender was to let Lao Zu go. After all, Lao Ma is the Demon King, so he is quite rational, and said seriously, as long as the master does his best, I don't dare to complain at all. I'm just worried about Lao Zu. Probably not. Although that kid Zhu Feng is ruthless, he still has some brains. He used the demon refining tower to suppress Lao Zu. He should probably treat Lao Zu as a thug. Zuyun could only comfort him like this, but he didn't expect to hit the mark. I hope so. The young one and Lao Zu depended on each other for their lives. They practiced together for thousands of years in a place with the least spiritual resources in Shiwen Mountain. They finally escaped from the demon refining tower, and finally he was captured again. Lao Ma's eyes flashed and his expression was a little downcast. Zuyun patted his shoulder and said, now you practice hard is the right way. If you meet Zhu Feng again in the future, the stronger you are, the more you can show your best. What the master said is true, and the villain knows it. The shackles trapped on the demon pill have weakened a lot recently. Oh. Zuyun raised his eyebrows and felt happy. After playing with Zheng Wengziu, Zuyun took a special look at his own seed. Nothing moved from above. But now Lao Ma actually said that there had been a change, how could he not be happy? Let me see. Zuyun said immediately. This. Lao Ma suddenly hesitated. Their demon elixir is like a monk's dantian. It is the source of power and the most deadly place. Zuyun said that he could understand the meaning of this observation, which was to pour his spiritual consciousness into it to investigate. This is tantamount to completely exposing himself to Zhu Yun's eyes. If he wants to hurt himself, he can use his spiritual power to crush his demonic elixir into pieces with just a thought. Although Lao Ma is equivalent to the nascent soul stage, the demon elixir is also very powerful. But the protective power is the same as that of nascent soul, which can be said to be almost non-existent. Unprepared, Zhu Yun wanted him to die with just one thought. Seeing Lao Ma's hesitation and embarrassment, Zhu Yun also knew that it was inappropriate to ask him. Although he considers himself the master, it does not mean that Lao Ma is afraid of death. Just when he was about to give up, Lao Ma also figured it out. Not only did he seek help from Zhu Yun, but he also learned from Xiao Zhuang about the mystery of this place. This is originally a secret realm. Later, for some reason, it became Zhu Yun's outer space. In other words, if Zhu Yun wanted to kill him, he might not have the power to resist. Unlike in the demon refining tower, I can still resist to some extent. Master, please. Lao Ma said something to Zhu Yun, then relaxed his mind and looked like he was letting Zhu Yun explore. Zhu Yun was stunned, but since Lao Ma agreed, he was not polite. He put his hand on Lao Ma's heavenly spirit beast and quickly poured in his spiritual consciousness. Soon I saw a round demon pill. In the demon pill, demon power is constantly flowing and circulating throughout the body. And Zhu Yun's eyes all fell on the looming white light lines on the outside of the demon pill. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 449. This was the first time Zhu Yun saw the lines on Lao Ma Yaodan. He looked carefully and matched the patterns on his own seeds, and was surprised to find that they were exactly the same. However, it seems that the lines on the demon core have faded a lot if you don't look carefully. It seems that some places have even been disconnected. I just don't know whether this situation is due to the effectiveness of the talisman passing away, or whether it is due to Lao Ma's own cultivation. But why hasn't my own changed at all? Zhu Yun thought for a moment and withdrew his spiritual consciousness. Old Ma, how did you deal with those shackles? This. Lao Ma shook his head and said truthfully, I don't know. Anyway, it's just a normal practice. Recently, I feel that more demonic power is available. Is that so? Zhu Yun was a little confused, but he knew that there was no need for Lao Ma to lie to him. He looked at his own seed, and Zhu Yun couldn't help but sigh. There is no change, it's really a headache. After patting his forehead a few times, Zhu Yun asked Lao Ma to continue practicing with peace of mind, while he left. After leaving the immortal mansion, the surrounding sky began to darken. On the ground, except for the remaining traces of the fight, it was still silent. By the way, I haven't talked to Qiu Qi properly before, so I'll talk to her now. Zhu Yun was in such a state that he didn't have to worry about being unable to deal with the Fox King again, not to mention that he didn't know where the Fox King was. After releasing Qiu Qi from the beast-controlling bag, Qiu Qi turned his eyes and stared at Zhu Yun. While in the beast control bag, Qiu Qi couldn't figure out why Zhu Yun knew her name. Until this moment, Zhu Yun in front of him suddenly transformed into a metal spirit body. A familiar voice reached her ears. Qiu Qi, do you still remember me? Seeing this scene, Qiu Qi's eyes suddenly widened with disbelief on his face, and he exclaimed, Are you, Tai Han Han? Zhu Yun's golden escape technique changes according to the color of the ground. Being in this mountain, the environment is quite different from that of Shiwanda mountain. Therefore, the metal spirit body that it becomes is naturally the same as the original one. Qiuqi was surprised that the metal spirit body and Zuyun were the same person. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have been able to believe it. Ha ha ha, yes, it's me. Are you surprised or surprised? Zuyun laughed out loud. In the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, he didn't have to worry about the sound spreading outside. Qiuqi did not laugh, but figured out why Zuyun would chase Xianxia and the others to save him. It turns out that he was the one who transformed into Tai Han Han. Recalling the past and the current situation, Qiuqi couldn't hold it back and burst into tears. Zuyun was also anxious and said, "What's wrong?" Qiuqi didn't speak, just kept crying. It wasn't until Qiuqi stopped that Zuyun said helplessly, "When I have the chance, I will send you back to Shiwanda Mountain, but not yet, I still have things to do. I don't want to go back first." Qiuqi wiped his tears and said softly, "Ah." Zuyun was stunned for a moment, and then asked, "If you don't go back, aren't you afraid that your father will worry?" "My dad?" Qiuqi hesitated for a moment, then his eyes became determined and he said seriously, "Tai Han Han, can you help me save someone?" "Save people? Save your people?" Zuyun was surprised. Why would Qiuqi want me to save people? Before leaving Shiwandas Han, it seemed like I had never seen anyone except me, right? No, it's about saving people. Save your own kind, the human race. Qiuqi's tone was firm. Zuyun was helpless for a while and said, "You can't protect yourself, how can you save others? Also, weren't you doing well in Shiwanda Mountain? Why were you captured by the Beast Pet Pavilion?" It's a long story. Tai Han Han, really, no one can help me except you now. Qiuqi said, sobbing again. Zuyun had no choice but to sit cross-legged on the ground and said, "Then tell me what's going on. I'm not very strong, so I don't know if I can help you." Seeing Zuyun's relaxed tone, Qiuqi's mood became more stable. She jumped into Zuyun's arms and said, "That's it?" Qiuqi had a good memory and recounted what happened after he separated from Zuyun. "Wait a minute, you said that you met a beautiful woman and a monk who used fire and saved you from the monks of the Silver Sword sect? Besides, they are probably in the elixir formation stage." Zuyun asked with a frown. Listening to Qiuqi's description, it seemed that one of the two people was Li Mo. As for the other person, he had no clue. "Yes, the level of their aura is similar to that of my father, but they are much weaker. According to your human level, they should be at the stage of forming the core." Qiuqi said with certainty, then looked at Zuyun and said, "It's almost the same as you, Tai Han Han, you have become stronger too." Zuyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Don't call me Tai Han Han, I am a human being, this is just one of my methods." Qiuqi said, "I don't know your name, and I think Tai Han Han is a good name. Anyway, I'm going to call you Tai Han Han." Zuyun was helpless and wanted to know Li Mo's whereabouts, so he gave up and asked instead, "What is the name of that male cultivator? Have you heard them say it?" Qiuqi nodded and said, "The man's name is Li Mo. I heard the female cultivator call her. But I don't know the name of the female cultivator. Later, I was called by the two female cultivators from the Silver Sword section after chasing and escaping for a long time. When I was almost caught, I met Li Mo again, but Li Mo killed them and then took me to escape." "Did you meet Li Mo again?" Zuyun was very happy when he heard the word Li Mo. Not only is Li Mo alive and well, but he has also broken through to the stage of pill formation. And it seems that he is living a good life, accompanied by beauty. But when he heard what Qiuqi said, he was suddenly shocked and said, "You want me to save Li Mo?" "Yes, just to save him. He was seriously injured and taken away by the people from the pet pavilion to save me." Qiuqi's tone suddenly became lonely. "Where is he?" Zuyun's eyes turned cold. That boy from Li Mo was a good person, and since Qiu Qi met him in Shiwen Mountain, it was enough to prove that he came into the mountain to find him. I just didn't expect that he would also come to Peeper Realm. I don't know, Qiu Qi shook his head and said, I only heard someone say at the time that it was a period of pill formation, so don't beat him to death, and keep it as a coolie. Zuyun suddenly frowned. Qiu Qi had no reason to lie to him, and she could understand human speech, which the monks could not imagine. So, if I want to find Li Mo, I can only go back to the Beast Pet Pavilion to find them. It should, maybe, probably, right. Qiu Qi knew that things were not that simple. She didn't know that Zuyun and Li Mo knew each other. She knew that this request was actually a bit difficult. If I go to save him, what about you? Will you also stay with me? Zuyun comes and goes alone, which is no problem. But in this case, it will be a little later before Qiu Qi can be sent back to Shiwen Mountain. I'm going to follow you first. The worst is, I'll stay in that little dark room. Qiu Qi said excitedly. She heard the meaning from Zuyun's words. She was going to save Li Mo. Dark room. Zuyun was stunned for a moment, but immediately understood that this was the beast control bag she was talking about. He subconsciously wanted to take Qiu Qi into the pasture, but then he thought about it. Qiu Qi was only following him temporarily and had no intention of recognizing his master. So I had to let go of this idea. He had dealt with the Fox King and knew that he was a maniac who doted on women, so he had better do this first to avoid misunderstandings when encountering him in the future. Then you go inside first, and I'll think of a countermeasure before taking action. Zuyun put Qiu Qi away again and fell into deep thought. He has already become enemies with the Beast Pet Pavilion. If he goes back to inquire about information, he may be in great danger. This face of mine. Zuyun subconsciously touched his face and immediately thought of Zhen Wengziu. Since he can use the heaven-changing talisman to transform into Yan Laoxi, what about himself? Thinking of this, Zuyun quickly entered the immortal mansion and took down the Tao of Talismans from the stone shelf. I turned to the page about the talisman of changing heaven and earth and read it carefully. To change the world and change the talisman, you only need to stick the talisman to your forehead and infuse spiritual power to maintain the appearance of others. This is changing the sky. It can also simulate various spiritual root attributes. This is changing the earth. Remember, be careful if the talisman falls. Otherwise, the prototype will be revealed immediately. Zuyun took out a heaven-changing talisman from the ring without hesitation and stuck it on his forehead. As the power of chaos flowed into the talisman from his forehead, Zuyun immediately noticed that his face began to slowly change. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 450. In the mountains, there is a stream. Zuyun squatted on the shore, looked at the reflection in the water, and kept touching his cheek. After trying it for a long time, he knew the magical effect of this heaven-changing talisman. The change in facial features is real. But the talisman attached to the forehead is hidden and cannot be seen at all. As it is said in Fudeo, it cannot be removed. Zuyun tried to touch his forehead with his hand, but he was able to touch the talisman. It's not bad. I hope I can hide it from the enemy. Zuyun removed all his own characteristics. The two Sumuru rings were placed in the immortal mansion, and Zhen Wengziu's storage bag was hung on his body. Except for a small amount of spiritual stones and elixirs, the others are all talismans. Zuyun thought to himself at the time that it was not bad for him to pretend to be Zhen Wengziu. After all, he was using talismans. I believe most people would not be able to tell the difference. Flying all the way towards the way he came, in order to save Li Mo, he could only temporarily give up his plan to enter the Fire Dragon sect. Things have priorities. I'm afraid if the time drags on for a longer time, Li Mo will be in danger. After a few hours, the sky turned completely dark. Zuyun has also flown to the edge of the hills. There is no one in the mountains, but there is nothing there when flying. But after entering the plains, it is inevitable that you will encounter some monks. Now that my identity is sensitive, I need to be even more cautious. Because of this, Zuyun landed at the foot of the mountain. Zhen Wengziu. But before he could stand still, a cold voice rang out, and at the same time, a demonic power appeared behind him out of thin air. Use Haibai. Zuyun was startled, and he immediately gathered the power of chaos and surged to his feet. The immortality technique allowed him to avoid the strong wind behind him. He turned around and saw that what was attacking him was a group of monsters with sword-like arms, presumably summoned by Use Haibai. Huh? This body technique. Seeing Zuyun move out of the way easily, Use Haibai was also shocked. He felt that he had seen him before, but when he looked carefully, he saw that it was Zhen Wengziu again. Use Haibai, what do you mean? Zuyun's face froze and he asked. This move is to delay time so that he can use the void-breaking spirit eye technique. Humph, you guys can come to the pet pavilion, why can't I? Use Haibai, come. Use Haibai snorted coldly, but he didn't expect that Zuyun had already seen through him just by talking. The serious injury has not healed. Then you, Use Haibai, can come, why can't I? Zhen Wengziu, come. Zuyun grinned, his eyes full of ridicule. Zhen Wengziu, this place is inaccessible. If I kill you, who will know? How dare you speak to me in such a tone? You are just a lackey of Wu Changqiu. Use Haibai's tone was strong, but he was extremely confused in his heart. Who gave Zhen Wengziu the courage to talk to him like this? Whether Zhen Wengziu is a lackey or not, what does it have to do with me? Zuyun laughed and said, before Use Haibai understood the meaning of these words, he threw out a talisman. It's a small skill, do you, Zhen Wengziu, have a talisman that you can use? Use Haibai immediately recovered and responded, and at the same time, he ordered the monster to slash towards Zuyun. He has had many dealings with the pet pavilion, so he naturally understands Zhen Wengziu. And the reason why he wanted to kill him was because he wanted to come back safely from the hills. Maybe he had solved Zuyun and got what he wanted. But I never thought that Zhen Wengziu himself was transformed by Zuyun. And this talisman was something he had never expected, Zuyun's Fire Phoenix talisman. Keng. It was very common for talismans to turn into fire, but Use Haibai didn't take it to heart because his level was higher than Zhen Wengziu's. But when the spark did not dissipate, but turned into a ball of fire and formed a fire phoenix, he was surprised. How come you have such a talisman? Feeling the fire phoenix talisman, which was comparable to a nascent soul attack, coming toward him, Use Haibai summoned a huge monster again without hesitation and stood in front of him. Boom! The fire phoenix castrated very quickly, and before the monster could react, it was covered in flames. Fires were everywhere, and the surrounding area was as bright as day, illuminating Use Haibai's frightened face. Impossible, how could you, Zhen Wengziu, have such a powerful talisman? On one side, he screamed in fear, while on the other side, he was retreating crazily. Zuyun sneered and quickly took out several heaven-gathering thunder talismans in his hands. There was another loud bang in the air, and suddenly there was thunder and lightning. Seeing such movement, Use Haibai suddenly realized, you are that kid. It's too late to know. The words were still echoing, but Zuyun's figure had disappeared. When he appeared behind Use Haibai, he suddenly held the Chaos Sword in his hand and stabbed it directly into Use Haibai's chest. Puff! After being severely injured, Use Haibai immediately spit out a bloody arrow. He looked down at the black sword edge coming out of his chest. There was no trace of his blood on it. You. He was unable to speak, and Zuyun also withdrew the Chaos Sword. Use Haibai's body softened and he collapsed on the ground. At the same time, his body's spiritual power surged, obviously trying to escape from the golden elixir. It's a pity that he is fast, Zuyun is faster. Fen Tianyan. After spitting out 3 words, Zuyun's chest burst into flames and rushed towards Yu's Haibai. No. Yu's Haibai's shrill screams pierced the night sky. But when the sound dissipated, he found that the fire was just floating above his body, and Zuyun looked at him meaningfully. Suddenly he understood that this kid was obviously trying to find out something. It's a pity that his body has been injured and he can't speak anymore. Under Fen Tianyan's surroundings, he still lets the golden elixir fly out. Sure enough, Fen Tianyan didn't move. He said in a deep voice, "What do you want to know?" Zuyun smiled lightly and said, "You are still self-aware. Earlier, you said you could let me choose the way to die. Now, I will give you a chance. If I ask a question and you answer, I will send you on your way cleanly." After speaking, Fen Tianyan, under his command, the flames suddenly rose. Sky fire! Use Haibai's golden elixir screamed again. Why does this kid have so many tricks? You have good eyesight. I believe you must be well informed and have something I want to know. Zuyun took out a few spiritual stones, threw them out, and set up a 9-turn 9-yang formation. You know how to use formations. Yu's Haibai felt like his breathing was about to stop. Even though he knew that he was bound to die, he couldn't restrain himself from being shocked by Zuyun. I know a lot, you can't see more than the tip of the iceberg. Zuyun sneered, and then asked, do you know where the people captured by the pet pavilion will be sent? You want to find someone? Yu's Haibai immediately asked back. Snort. Zuyun snorted coldly, and as soon as his eyes were focused, Fen Tianyan's fire increased and burned away a layer of the golden elixir in an instant. Ah! What are you doing? Yu's Haibai kept screaming, never expecting that Zuyun would take action directly. Doesn't he want to know the news? You have no right to ask me. This is the last warning. Zuyun spoke and asked Fen Tianyan to withdraw the fire. You. Yu's Haibai gasped. The fire of Fen Tianyan not only burned out his golden elixir, but also made him feel as if his soul was being burned. This kind of pain is very unbearable. There was even a moment when Yu's Haibai thought he was going to die. No one will truly be afraid of death unless he walks around in death. The Beast Pet Pavilion here has several exclusive mineral veins. As far as I know, they will injure some monks, seal their cultivation and then send them to mine. Several mines, where are they? I know of only 3 places. One is near our demon-controlling sect, and the specific location is unknown. The other 2 are both in Qingnu Town. Where is Qingnu Town? 300 miles east of Fangxi. Zuyun nodded slightly, and then asked, do you know where the Muling Holy Mountain is? Muling Holy Mountain. Yu's Haibai's tone suddenly changed, and after exclaiming, he fell silent again. Zuyun didn't speak and watched quietly. A long while. Yu's Haibai finally spoke. Muling Holy Mountain, if you ask all over Peeper Realm, no one will know the specific location. But, I know. Explain. Zuyun's tone became cold again. He didn't expect Muling Sacred Mountain to be so mysterious. At that time, Mu Qingzin said, didn't Tang Zhuyang get the fake wood spirit bead from the wood spirit holy mountain? He could go there, so why did Yu's Haibai say that no one knew except him? Ha ha ha, Yu's Haibai laughed suddenly, want to know about the holy mountain of wood spirit? You either kneel down and beg me, or kill me. The wood spirit pearl is not something you can get. Court death. Zuyun was furious and was about to stretch out his hand to restrain Yu's Haibai's golden elixir and press him for further questioning. Unexpectedly, Yu's Haibai rushed directly into the burning sky flame. There was not even a scream, Yu's Haibai was burned directly. Zuyun looked at the scene blankly, but he didn't expect him to be so decisive. In this way, Muling Holy Mountain is not as simple as I thought,